Hello, I'm your host, Siena Abbott, and welcome to Writing Into the Void with Siena, where all you have to do is get cozy and enjoy original short stories read to you. Without further ado, here's this week's episode. Enjoy! Hello, and welcome to today's episode. I'm so excited to be here. So last week I read a fictional piece, more fantasy-based, and that was really fun. But this week I've decided I'm going to read one story that I've written that is more psychological thriller kind of. I've always gravitated towards the darker. As I've mentioned when I was introducing this podcast, I love influences like Stephen King, so I've always found the dark side of things to be very interesting and something I enjoy. So writing in that genre has been something I've always wanted to explore. So I thought I'd share a short one with you. This one is not very long, but I hope you do enjoy it because I had a wonderful time writing it. And I wrote this one a long time ago and then revised it recently because I thought I liked the premise and I just had a good time with it. So I hope you are excited to hear this story, and let's begin. This week's story is called The Visitor. Every night I make certain to place my glass of water exactly 5 inches away from my head. Door closed, closet door closed, coat hanging on the rack. Yet every night it seems someone must have plans different than mine. At first I thought it was a mistake or caused by my cat. I mean, who knows? Maybe she developed half a brain and learned how to open a door. Good kitty. But then there was the water. I suppose she could push it away from me, but wouldn't I notice? With the house being so still and quiet, and the glass being mere inches from my head. There was room for speculation, but I kept the questions in the back of my mind. A week later, I found my coat open on the floor, laid out as if there was a purpose in mind. I laughed at myself. What psychotic thinking? If, and this is only if, someone had broken in, surely they wouldn't have not taken anything and instead laid out my coat, all ready for me to pick up and put on for work. Silly Jason, just plain silly. At first I would just laugh the nerves away and talk to my cat. Watch the house, Jasmine, I would say as I left for work. One day it was a piece of laundry. I distinctly remember placing it in the bin, so why in the world would it be on the floor? Logic said it must be Jasmine, but that afternoon I bought a gun. Whichever room I was in, whatever task I was doing, the gun was not far away. Water spilt and glass broke. I kept the gun in my hand. Some days I would laugh at the walls, wondering how I had never realized how comical they were. And other days I would look back and forth with fervor and fear, eyes bloodshot from the restless sleep. I stopped going to work. Had to protect Jasmine. Had to watch the house. Had to. I would sit, glazed eyes staring at a stain on the wall of my room. A stain which I realized was never there before. Ketchup, yes. What else could it be? Salsa? Maybe. So I went to taste it. You must be sure of what stains were on your walls. Sweet, a bit coppery. Must be expired. Rolling back and forth, I lay on my back in my bed, singing or humming a careless tune. It seemed the walls were enclosing, suffocating me. That same day, the approaching hurricane finally hit, destroying and decimating the once beautiful trees that stood outside my window in my poor barn. What a poor barn! A horse or two drowned, another frightened and in too much shock to even dare move. Jasmine was humanity, though, and she was fine, protected by me. Such a good feeling to know I protected her. Despite knowing it was just ketchup, and probably Jasmine just messing with me because, she's just such a silly girl. A very silly, silly girl. I set up a camera. Yes, for Jasmine's safety, of course. I would not be a protector if I wasn't certain as to who I'm protecting is up to. So that night I hung a camera with some scotch tape in the corner of the room, up above the door frame. As night approached, I turned it on, a giddy laugh escaping me from the pride I felt in being so resourceful. With such newfound confidence and joy, how could someone not sleep soundly? That was exactly the question I asked as I fell asleep for the first time in a very long time. The next morning I awoke with an exaggerated yawn and stretch. What a glorious day today would be. Adrenaline was pumping in anticipation of the footage. I got up and snatched the camera off its resting place. Cross-legged on my bed, I sat, lightly bouncing with a stupid grin on my face as I pressed the play button. "Look, Jasmine, that's me, asleep," I hollered out to wherever she might rest. The film kept rolling, and I watched hours upon hours, never ceasing to smile or stop commenting about the simple, everyday things in life that were recorded. However, at about 3 a.m., something peculiar did happen. A sound could be heard, like that of a snake slithering on a rough surface from outside the closed bedroom door. Leaning in, I tried to make more sense of it, but after a while I just shrugged it off, dismissing it as Jasmine. Just about when I completely forgot about the noise, it started again, growing increasingly louder until the classic click of the door latch seemed to signal the release of it. The silence was oppressive, enough to make sweat appear on your brow and your hands become clammy. With horror, I saw a black figure slink into the room. My smile faded and was replaced with a gasp. Then I began to laugh, scoffing at my insecurities. That was Jasmine, that little trickster. Matter of fact, where was she now? I couldn't seem to recall. But that's besides the point, so I resumed my video. As Jasmine slowly crept into the room, she began to contort. The fuzzy, low-quality video that was also black and white made it hard to figure out the details, but the body hunched up as if in severe pain. Fur seemed to extend, resembling a mane. I held my breath as I watched whatever this was, certainly not Jasmine, as it raised onto its haunches, growing and growing. It seemed it would never stop. 1 foot, 2, 3, 4, 5, and finally what must be 6 feet. Fur was sprouted and in thick rods, standing on end like a beast version of the fly. With disgust and horror, I stared at my sleeping body that was so unaware and content with such a grotesque creature mere feet away. The creature turned around with blazing red eyes that no doubt were the devil's own as the beast locked eyes with me through the camera. To my horror, I realized the room I was in was the same one this monster had stepped foot in, and I was rehashing it all on video. Breathless, I began to shake. I needed to leave this place forever. The ketchup. Was it ketchup or was it Jasmine? Tears started pouring down my cheeks and sobs racked my body. I was about to get up when something rough and furry slapped across my face, ceasing my scream that was about to rip from my throat. I heard grunting and snarling sounds I was unaware of mere minutes before. My words were muffled by what must have been the hand of whatever creature this was. It took my chin in its other inhuman hand, grasping and turning my head to become face to face with a living nightmare. As I slightly opened my eyes, I screeched, an ear-shattering sound despite the beast's hand over my mouth. And the face I saw left my eyes wide open as 2 full moons. Above all else, I wanted to look away, but I could not. Before me was the demon creature I'd been watching through tape moments ago. Red eyes that were bloodshot stared me down. They appeared on fire, dancing like embers. The face had fangs seeping out of its muzzle, and on its huge head were pointy ears, eerily resembling horns. I couldn't take it anymore. Within the grasp of the beast's hand, I violently slapped my neck to the right, ending it all. It only hurts for a second, so don't be afraid. Come join Jasmine and I. There's a frightful lack of visitors. I really hope you enjoyed this week's story. As I mentioned before, it was a lot of fun to write. And I would like to take the time to ask you to subscribe to the podcast, but also if you ever have any topics or short story genre or ideas that you would like me to write and then read, I would love to do so. Also, send in any short stories you have written, and I would love to read them. It sounds like a lot of fun. So if you have anything that you've been sitting on and want to get out there, I would love to read it, and I think it would be fun for all of us. So basically, every week I am going to be writing a new short story. So it's good practice for me to get more stories going. So this means that some of the stories I'll be reading will be shorter and some will be longer. And I hope you're okay with not a set time. But I really do hope you enjoyed the story, and I'm so excited to bring you another story next week. Also, feel free to look me up on YouTube at Writing Into the Void with Siena. I have started a channel there, and I post the audio, but also some scrolling text of the story. I'm not very good at editing those yet, but those videos will be there, just as another way to gain access to the podcast. So have a wonderful week, and I'll catch you later. Bye, guys.